Hi, we're going to get started. My name's Jay, and I've been teaching on this independent course about music and juggling. And we started the first week in this room with a juggler called Vincent de Lavenaire from France. And we worked with him for 1 week. On the course we had 11 students. And so after this first week of working together, then everybody went away to their own homes, and we took ideas from that first week of meeting Vincent, and we came up with different ideas for experiments to try in the weeks in between the first week and now. So everybody went home, and we had some assignments online, and they sent videos, and we had feedback, and this was all based upon Vincent's work of the first week when we all met. And now this is the last working week, so it's the 10th week of the course. We've been working for 1 week with a musician named Crabtree, who's back there, who's from New York. And now tonight we'd like to show you what we've been working on together for 1 week of some of the ideas that we can show you in a very short time that we came up with Brian. So just to give you a little bit more of an introduction and context of what you're going to see, Brian is a musician, but he also builds his own instruments. And he works mostly with electronic music. So he builds instruments. You have to look at me over here, because my cable's not so long. But he builds instruments that look like this, for example. So it's a grid of buttons with lights. And these buttons and lights can represent anything he wants the computer to tell it to do. Is that fair?
Fair enough.
So it could be, for example, a piano if you wanted to program it as such, or it could be any other sort of machine. And right now in the program that we're running, it's called Metaphysics, and there's a really nice little example of how juggling and music fit together in Brian's world using this program here. So you can see there are ranges of notes in each row. These dimly lit, so here's a range of notes, here's a range of notes in each row. And then in each row there's also a brightly lit button. And that button is going to be the one that's going to fall down, and when all of the notes hit the bottom, they make a sound. So it's easier to show you than to talk about, so. Let's see. Right? And so for each range, once a light falls down and hits the bottom, it jumps to the next button in the range. So in this way we have the same notes, but every time I press the button, they're going to fall down in a different shape. So in this way, you can start to make a little bit more organic permutations of those notes. So he can just mash some buttons on this grid, and the lights can fall down, and he doesn't have to already think ahead of time, how's it going to sound? He can just try out different experiments. And so the first thing we're going to show you as a group is that we were working with these balls. And these balls have an accelerometer inside, and they connect to a computer by Bluetooth. So again, Brian can make these balls do anything he likes. And when, for example, when I catch the ball, it can trigger a note. So in the exact same way that we have the lights falling down his grid in a random way to generate random notes, we can do the exact same thing with the balls. A little example of that. To this computer program he made that randomizes notes, but of course, since I'm human, I'm much better at being random than the computer, and we get the same effect but only amplified. But we did a lot of other things with these as well, and we'd like to show you with the students that we had in the course. So the first one, we have somebody juggling 3 balls with one of these, somebody juggling 4 with one of these, and somebody juggling 5. And again, this is going to produce a random permutation of notes in terms of melody and progression. You can imagine, again, on this grid, that one of the columns has 3 lights lit, the next column has 4 lights lit, and the next one is 5 lights lit, right? And in that way, we're just going through the permutations of 3 against 4 against 5 and generating these random sequences, because they're juggling all at the same tempo and the same rhythm. So sometimes you can see that the balls, they land at the same time, and sometimes, of course, because they have different numbers of objects, they come at different times. And we have another variation to show of this with some other people. So we're going to add these balls on either side, and the blue ball does
bass note.
The bass note, and the red ball
bass note and chord change.
Does a bass note and a chord change. And to be clear, the white balls are doing what?
The white balls are not one-to-one mapped to single notes. They're actually triggering a progression through a sequence, which is why every time there's a catch, it's actually playing a different note. And then the process of permutation is in fact not random, but it's a phasing over time, so you're hearing different combinations of the notes based on the catches.
Right, and if we just listen to the one white ball, it will progress through
it'll play the whole sequence. Yeah, the computer's on.
The bass note and the chord change. Was that right? Chord change? Yeah. Stop for a second. Stop for a second. Start again. Start again. Thanks. Side-by-side passing. And we have Aki on the side changing the chord. Great, thanks. Nice. From Brian's grid, his work with the grid and the computer programming, we can take some of these musical ideas, like a randomization of notes that I was showing, where I'm just randomly throwing the balls and having them humanly come down out of order. Or then we also have what we just saw, a polyrhythm, 3 against 4 against 5. So we worked with some of these ideas of taking the musical concept and applying it directly to juggling. And this next thing is a little bit similar, but also taking this much farther, this kind of idea of a musical idea and doing it with juggling. And one of the assignments we had in the 8 weeks in between for an online video was to make something called ambient juggling, which I don't think existed before. But the idea of using the concept from ambient music and applying that to juggling. And if you don't know what ambient music is, generally we can say let's just agree that Brian Eno made it up. And famously, he was in some sort of a car accident, and he was in a bed. He couldn't get out of his bed, and his friend came to visit him and brought him a record, and put a record on the turntable across the room, and then said goodbye to let Brian rest. And the record actually wasn't loud enough to really hear very well, but Brian was in bed, and he couldn't get up to go turn the volume up. So instead he laid in the bed, and he listened to this record at a very low volume. And he could hear outside the window still the rain and the cars passing by. And in this way he got an idea that music could be an ambience. And in fact he said, ambient music is as forgettable as it is memorable. So in this way we wanted to try to make some sort of juggling atmosphere, ambient juggling. And the videos that we had resulting from this were pretty surprising, and actually Noah was really cool and went out on the street and just did juggling as people passed by and really did make an atmosphere. And of course, since we're not here on the street, it's hard to reproduce that feeling. But there was one, Villads had a really nice attempt at ambient juggling, which I loved. So we're going to take a look at what he did for that. Thanks. So, and thinking about this ambient juggling, one of the things from seeing all the videos of the students that occurred to me is that the normal technique of juggling, of throwing and catching a ball, it's a really sharp, distinct event, right? Especially when you catch the ball, it's so sudden, and it really stops and makes a visual point. So what I really liked about Villads' attempt here was that he chose a different kind of technique. So the ball is always rolling on the floor, so you get a different kind of rhythm, a different visual rhythm. And whether it's ambient juggling or not, I don't know, but I really thought it was a nice way to try something in that direction. So we did a music and juggling course here at DOCH in 2009, that lasted for much longer, for 6 months, for half a year. And the last week of that course, we made a little suggestion of what should happen if the program would ever, if we would ever repeat it. And one of the suggestions that we found out at the end in 2009, if we should try to do music and juggling experiments some more, is that we should work with this idea of melody. And so that was the starting point we had for this course now for our 10-week investigation, especially with Vincent, who came from France, and we worked with melody with him. And when Brian came, we asked what Brian thought about melody, and he said, well, he said a bunch of stuff, and one thing really stuck out to me in particular, and he started talking about stability and instability. And we can maybe leave it at that and just jump into the... So, we had at one point this idea that a melody contains a stability and an instability with a resolution at the end. So we have these notes that are maybe fighting each other in the middle somehow, or are unstable, and at the end they resolve into something that hopefully makes sense. So we tried to make some juggling experiments about stability and instability. And one challenge was to not make that about the technique, because of course it's very easy to literally interpret it and say, oh, I'm stable, I'm doing 5 balls, it's very stable. Or I'm doing 12 balls, it's unstable. But we're not talking about technique, we're talking about visual result. So it's quite confusing. So it's like when you hear a melody, we're listening to this effect. And now with juggling, we're going to see the effect. So I think the first one was it Ben and Noah? Yeah? So here's a little image of stability and instability in regards to melody, visual melody. Cool, thank you. Then we have a trio with Pauliina, David, and Villads about stability and instability. Yeah, thanks. And then we had, we had a solo. It's Lucas. Lucas doing a stability and stability. Again, this idea of stability, that there's an image that's making some sort of sense together as a whole. There comes something in the middle of it that makes it unstable, but then there has to be a visual resolution. So let's see what that looks like with one person. Yeah, cool. And then we have Ben and Lucas doing a duet. And this is a stability-instability duet image. But there's also a couple of other musical elements we can see here, such as this idea of phasing, which we talked about earlier. So this is some stability, instability, and of course you can find some phasing here too. Nice. And again, you can see that there's this challenge with juggling where we're talking about music and juggling and phasing and melody and all these things. But I said we were interested in the visual aspect because music you listen to and juggling normally you see. Of course, there's noise there are sounds produced when you juggle, for sure. But the main focus of juggling is normally visual. And it's the same thing with music. Normally you're listening to music, but of course there are visual things that produce the music. But here we had a duet where just the technique itself makes a lot of noise, a lot of sound. So this week, when we're working, it's really hard to keep remembering, okay, we're working with a visual, and juggling is not actually music, it's a different thing. So it gets a bit confusing. I just wanted to point that out because we have a lot of techniques that make sound. But if we're concerned about the visual, it's hard to ignore the sound. So, but now we're going to do something with the sound. It's the 2 against 3 quartet. So here we're going to take the rhythm 2 against 3. So 2 beats in the same amount of time it takes to do 3 beats. And we have, who's doing 3 beats? You guys are doing the 3? Well. Okay, you guys have it. Okay, remix. Good.
I need to know your tempo.
Start again. You want to try again?
It's like a bit harder. We'll just count it.
You want to count it in?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Cool. So nice. So what was actually happening?
So we were trying to figure it out earlier because it's not actually a 2 on 3.
Okay.
Because we're doing something that's in 3 time, and they're doing something that's in 4 time slower.
Ah, okay.
So I don't know what that means. Yeah. So if you want to just see like what we're doing and then what he's doing.
Yeah.
So mine is like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
juggling.
Yeah. Nice. So then we have great. So now you can stay up there because we're going to do phasing of everybody. Yeah, so we have a group of 2 people, a group of 3 people, a group of 5 people. And It's the exact same thing we looked at on the grid when we first started tonight. So each person represents a line on the grid, basically a note range. And we're going to count down through each group. One group has 2 people, one group has three people, one group has 5 people. And so we're going to get different combinations of who's playing with each other. So we're going to start, who's starting here? And you're starting, and you're starting. So the first 8 counts, the first bar, we're going to hear Pauliina and Nathan and David. And then it's going to start to switch down the lines. The next person will be Benjamin on this group, the next person will be Villads in this group, and then of course Lucas in this group. And so you're going to see, we're going to hear all the combinations of everybody together. It's going to be a repeating pattern. Okay, cool. So, wait, what's happening next? Oh yeah. So I just wanted to say that the first week when Vincent came, he had some juggling balls that inside had bells, and the bells had different notes on them. So he was making music acoustically. The balls we had earlier, of course, were electronic. But he had bells inside these balls, and the balls made noise. So at one point, we decided we wanted to try to juggle in the same way with Vincent. Obviously, here the focus isn't on the visual part, but it's on actually making sounds that we could then layer over each other. And as you don't have bells inside our props, it was a technical solution to try to make noise with the props we had. So, thanks. I think Nathan can stay, and whoever's going to hold the mic for, yeah. And so now we're going to take that one step farther. So we're going to take the sound of juggling, and when I showed Brian the video of the last day when we were working with Vincent, we had made a group, a beat, a little song with all the people, much like you just saw here. We're going to do that later on in a few minutes, that original beat. But Brian saw the video and he said, hey, it would be really nice if we had a microphone to capture all the small detailed noises or sounds that are coming from the juggling. So the juggling normally produces a lot of extra sounds that we don't normally consider or think about or hear. So he had this idea that can we amplify them? And so that's what we're going to start to do the next part of the demonstration. And at the same time, Brian's going to use, again, his machine that he built and the software on the computer to sample and cut up the sounds and process them into different musical territory of what Nathan's going to juggle.
Villads, before we do this, let's mic check.
Yeah.
We are good. Yep.
Cool, and let's try the same thing with Lucas. We'll do the same processing of the sound, of these kind of micro sounds and these details. Cool. And so we have this physical challenge of figuring out how to get the microphone close to the juggling. I mean, we started off doing this with the improvisation, and of course, the microphone got hit many times. And so it became a nice little juggling challenge. How can we choreograph the microphone along with the juggling so it's more intentional? And we have a few examples of that. So for those examples, we're just going to do straight microphone with no effects, right, Brian?
Yep.
And it's just a little bit about the visual choreography of how to capture the sound and the funny little ideas that come up from that. Great, nice beat. So we have, Villads and Nathan. You're gonna try to do the same idea? So we have a mic, how to mic a juggling sequence.
Villads mic check again?
Yeah. Oh, this is not working.
Yeah.
What about now?
Try it again.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
We have one more example of this microphone choreography. It's with Benjamin and Lucas with a Z.
Mic's
And after-
you gotta swap though.
After this, we have 3 more ideas to show you, just so you know, too.
Go ahead and pull out whichever one's not connected. Okay, so plug that into the green cable. Can you check? Good.
this next thing we're gonna do with the whole group. So we have a little bit of setup and organization among ourselves to do right now. So come on out. We're gonna start with the textures, and then we're gonna go into the orchestra conducting. And this is the exact same thing we've just been doing with duets, but with the whole group. And just to remind everybody involved, what's going to happen. We start with the small textures, and when Brian brings in the synthesizer, then we're going to start to go to the orchestra conducting bit, right? And then that's up to Villads to make this happen. And we have, yeah, cool. All is well. Oh, and do you have your delay ready?
Yeah.
Did you fix it? Are you sure? Do you want to try?
Sorry. Can we hear mics?
Can we hear Mike?
Yeah.
And the other one?
Other mic? Good.
Yeah, you're good to go? Okay, cool. Great, so we just have two more things to show you. And that is, maybe we can start to stretch out the tape loop and get the mics out of the way. We need to unfold the tape loop. So, and I'll try to explain what we're going to do while you get prepared. In one of the first videos of the working weeks where we were doing the online course, part of the course, one of the students who couldn't be here tonight, he had sent in a video where he was juggling vinyl records. And of course, other people have done this over the years, but he did a really great piece with the vinyl record, and it made me start to think, what else could we manipulate physically that's a musical medium? So of course you could juggle, I don't know, your laptop or a USB stick or something stupid like this with today's MP3, online, everything. But there's also another style of music that uses what's called a tape loop. So this is a magnetic tape that you would find in an ordinary cassette that you put in a cassette player, and it runs through this tape machine here on the table next to Brian. And this tape machine was graciously loaned to us tonight by the band, the great Swedish industrial band, Agent Sidewinder. Right, so they're pretty big though in Japan, and so they had a tape machine. No. Okay, but they use tape loops, and I want to explain what a tape loop is. So we have this tape machine here, and there's a playhead that when you record a sound, when the tape physically passes this part of the machine, then of course you hear that sound, but that part of the tape then has to travel all the way around, of course the size of the loop, before you hear that same sound again. So we have, in one way, what's called a delay. You could say it's a physical delay of that sound, because it's delayed until it gets back to the beginning of the source. And obviously, since we are jugglers, we can start to play around with this tape while it's not being heard. So we have the sound source there, and after that sound has been played, it has to take this long journey all the way around until it gets back again. And during that journey, we played around with a bunch of different ideas, and we'll show you a few of them now. So we're going to start with Nathan, then we're going to add in, you guys ready to add in? Yeah, you guys are going to add in, and then we're going to add in David at the end of that. We'll just show those images right in a row, I think. You're good to go? No help? It's okay? Should be good. Okay, let's try it out. So let's see if it works.
Should I be here?
In sound check, we had a gray one, maybe. Or?
I got it.
Yeah. But, Brian, hold on a second. But Brian, you want to hold that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys can chill. Okay, let's get the other people. Go ahead and join. So again, there's a wheel on here that's feeding this tape through here. So the whole tape is spinning around. And then you can see when Nathan puts pressure on the tension of the tape, it stops playing. It's too powerful for the motor to drive. And all of the artifacts you hear in the sound, all of the bad sound quality, or it sounds quite nice, I think, those are remnants of the physical abuse of the tape. So we have the juggling affecting the sound in a really concrete, physical way, interacting directly with the sound. Nice. And David, you can join with the Diablo. And so just face however you want to face physically, and we'll watch you however you can be. Yeah, you want to have some slack at the beginning for the throws? Cool. Try it again. Rock and roll. Cool. So, and we tried a lot of other things with the tape loops. Obviously, it's pretty tricky to deal with the new material. A lot of the ideas were really cool, but not ready to even show you a little bit. But it was super fun. And we really want to thank Agent Sidewinder. Yeah. So, the last thing we'd like to show you is it's a recreation of a video that was from the very last assignment we did online. And that was this idea of having a remix. So we wanted to remix an idea out of anything we've done in the course so far. And Noah made this video where he edited himself on the screen 3 different times overlapping to create the composition of a fugue. So he followed a fugue and wanted to recreate that style of composition with juggling. And he filmed himself and edited himself. It's a super nice video, but we thought, since there's a lot of us, we could actually do the video live without editing. So we can have more than one Noah in real life. And we'd like to end with that as the last thing we show you. And then I have to say a couple of words for the video camera, since we're documenting this for ourselves and for the course. But let's just see this last piece of juggling, and then I'll say goodbye.
Luca, you are DJ.
Villads, David, and Kathrin. And we really want to thank, Kathrin. Thank you so much for your help with the course. Thank you to Walter for having the course. Thank you to DOCH for hosting the course. I want to thank Brian. I want to thank Vincent, but also I really want to thank Ivar Heckscher for helping on the course. He was really pushing me and helping me to do this, so thanks, man, for being here. I appreciate it. And also this week, just to say, we've had some other people join us. So we had the first year students from DOCH, right? We had Benjamin and Aki and Pauliina. And Hjalmar joined us for the first week, which was super awesome. Nice to see you. I don't know did I forget anybody? Should I thank more people? Is that cool? Politically, everything's cool?
Thank yourself.
Yeah, so I really want to thank you for coming to join us, and I really want to thank you guys for your work, so great job.
A big round for Jay as well, and we're looking forward to the next course.